couple of questions for Dr. Zimmerman. I know that you stated that the staffing plan was approved. Is that correct? By HHC?
Yes.
And you know how many lines are approved for physicians, midwives, and PAs?
Do I know right now? No, I don't. I know that there will be about 4 more doctors here than there were lines, but I actually didn't bring that. I don't have the exact numbers.
And what is your recruitment process?
I recruit in all possible ways, but are you referring to physicians? Yeah, I'm almost done with physicians. But word of mouth, people I know, I have a national reputation. I've had absolutely no problem recruiting. And I've basically done it myself. I hired 2 people the first day I started working.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Lobo. As Eileen, our moderator, suggested, I'm the president of the Northwest Bronx Community Clergy Coalition, and I gave birth here at North Central Bronx 5 years ago to my son Tiago. I'm up on one of those posters. And it really was a very powerful and a very beautiful experience here. The midwives were incredibly caring and loving and qualified, and it was a really wonderful experience, hence why I shared with other neighbors and friends of why they should deliver here. From the beginning, the North Central Bronx Committee has requested real collaboration. We've spoken about this before. Two-way dialogue, not just one-way communication or last-minute announcements. We've requested collective decision-making and planning, not just telling us decisions once they've been made and already made for the community. So essentially, we are asking for authentic partnership around outreach, around communication and planning. I'm asking the committee here, can you commit to monthly meetings with the North Central Bronx Committee to be in regular dialogue around a variety of things where we can provide feedback, help you troubleshoot, plan together, and be in regular communication around the plans to reinstate the services that you've suggested, and around the different factors that might impact the timeline.
So, as you heard a few moments ago, we made a commitment, and particularly Hannah made a commitment to working with folks who, some of whom, not everybody in this room, but some of whom are in this room. In terms of monthly commitments, I'm not going to commit to a monthly commitment. I think we will commit to periodic meetings with the group based on what needs to get done. I mean, one of the things we need to do is to do the work of running a hospital, right? But we will commit to regular meetings, not just within this timeline of, from today to when we reopen, but regular periodic meetings with this group, with the body of individuals as we move forward in continuing to deliver the care. We want to hear your voices. We want to hear ideas. We need help in marketing these services. It cannot be underscored how important it is that we have as many babies delivered here as absolutely possible. Over the last 3 years, prior to the suspension of services here, there was actually a decline in deliveries because there's less babies being born in the borough, but also because other people were going other places. We need your help and the very impactful stories about how great a care you got here. So we are not going to ignore your help and your voices. But I also have to say, at a certain point, the buck stops here. The buck stops in terms of our being accountable, in terms of having licensed, trained clinicians, nurses, midwives, doctors. The buck stops with HHC in ensuring that we can provide safe care. The buck stops in terms of our accountability to the State Department of Health. So we have decision-making has to be made by us. But decision-making in a vacuum is not what we want either. But we need to make the distinction between collaborating, seeking your counsel and your input, and decision-making.
So when we gathered in December, those words were told to us too, the regular meetings, and that was the last time that we met. So 3 months to us doesn't feel like regular meetings, especially when we've been promised certain timelines, and then those have shifted since then, and we have not been brought into the process. Well, so I want you to define for us what regular meetings mean.
I think it will be based on specific milestones that we have to provide. And we have been transparent. I shared this timeline with the targets. So we will look at this timeline. I mean, let me just tell you, I also shared, I believe, the letter from the State Department of Health. Now, they want monthly meetings, and they will get them. Because if we can't get them to agree to when we can reopen, we can't reopen. So I think what we can do is get back to whomever you tell me to about a schedule of meetings. But I'm not going to commit to monthly meetings tonight.
So when you say scheduled meeting, again, we're just trying to get some clarity so that
Sure.
we can actually stop asking the same question over and over again and be in collaboration and in
Right.
communication. So what does that look like?
What it looks like is maybe it's every other month, maybe it's every 6 to 8 weeks. It depends on what has to get done. And it may be that meeting once a month is not necessary because there's a body of work that needs to get done. And you know, but it also depends on the work that you'll be doing. So I think, again, here the issue is we collectively need to be committed to working together. But we need to be able to work together from a reasonable perspective. And, you know, the issue of being fixed, having fixed timelines, I think you all need to give us some flexibility. Because as I said, you know, our principal work is keeping this hospital operating, not just the service, but keeping this hospital in network, and I do the things that I do, which are beyond this hospital. But we're willing to have regular discussions with maybe not this entire room, but people who are going to be working on certain types of in areas that we were outlining, and you identify other areas that you think could be helpful as we move forward.
Well, that's a good segue for my second question. So in our last gathering in December, community members really expressed a lot of sadness around the lack of communication from the hospital administrators and what seemed to be, at least at the time, a very serious deficiency in interest to engage the community in any part of the outreach, communication, and planning. And so we came to that gathering really with the hopes that our trust would be rebuilt with publicly made commitments made from hospital administrators around the reinstatement of services. So in that gathering, Ms. Brown and Mr. McLeod guaranteed us that services would be reinstated in April. We followed up with lots of questions to anticipate delays or obstacles, anything that would get in the way of the opening of that time. And again, we were reassured that it would be reinstated at that time, and that significant efforts would be made to be in communication with the community. So right now, I think I speak for many folks, that there's very little trust that's left, given the changes in the timeline without community input or feedback, a new reopening date and timeline that has been set and told to us after the fact. And this is what I think is most important for us, which is almost no effort made to include the community in the process, especially around communication, around what's going on. In the most recent plans that you all have shared with us, the opening is allotted, the community outreach for the opening is only allotted for August, September, even though the opening is scheduled for September. So this has a little bit of concern for us. Given the negative experiences that many mothers and other community members have experienced as a result of the abrupt changes in services and the lack of ongoing communication or involvement with the community, we know that regaining that trust is not going to happen in a matter of 2 to 4 weeks with some community outreach. And so we want to engage with you and invite you to think about a process that is planning with us ahead of time, because again, it will require a lot to regain that trust. And that means ongoing communication and opening the dialogue so that we can have input on what that looks like. In December, we spoke about an open house and how that might be a great opportunity to invite the community in, to be oriented around those services when they were ready to be open. So if the scheduled opening of the services are scheduled for September, we would like the open house or the equivalent to take place at least a month ahead of time. Outreach to the community around that open house would have to be a month before that, so that would be July. And we assume that outreach would include local newspapers, letters, phone calls to families and moms, as well as reaching out to community organizations. And lastly, planning of that outreach and planning of that open house should be done with the community a month before that. And so that really brings us to June, which is right around the corner. And so one, can you commit to that? And two, what are some incentives that you are prepared to offer moms, given that many of them are not in a good place in terms of relationship with NCB, and to bring them back and to regain that trust, I think we really need to be intentional about what that looks like.
Okay, so you said a mouthful.
I did. I wanted to communicate how, how much we love this hospital and services, and at the same time, how saddened we are by the process.
Right, and I say that with much appreciation. So let me just